This is ridiculous.
99.3 The Truth.
You can't handle the truth right now.
Ooh.
That's the stupidest thing I ever heard.
Let's do it.
Hit it. It's time for
Mac's World. And here we go.
Everybody, let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Call Mac 244-0077 or text 809-0993.
It's showtime, everybody! Showtime!
Exclusively on 99.3 The Truth.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the show formerly known as Mac's World Live is now being brought to you as Tom's World Live. We'll see if we can't do something to liven up your day just a little bit. This is powered by Webcast One Live, 99.3 KTIA. And we'll
The Truth Network.
The Truth Network. And we also have the normally
Shy and reserved
Frank, the verse. Frank is here. We do not have the normal present Bob. Bob, I think, is still recovering from his, looked like I saw some pictures on Facebook, rather exhaustive trek through the wilds of Israel and Bethlehem.
Well, it's not so much that. It's the plane ride home. I don't know what their layover was coming back, but it was like 5 or 6 hours in Newark.
Oh, boy.
Oh. And they had to go through the screening process in Newark, and it's a little bit more of a tougher screening process than Des Moines International.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not a worldwide traveler very much, but my wife and I did our 40th anniversary a couple years ago coming back from Ireland, and that was a little bit more excitement at times than I wanted.
Yeah, I bet.
International travel is unfortunately much more difficult now than it used to be.
Well, nerve-wracking because you don't know. I mean, it's not always easy to tell who your friends and who your enemies are.
Right.
And as an American, you kind of got kick me glued on your back because they know you're a tourist and you just don't want to ever get caught in a situation where you end up in some, kidnapping plot or something to try to extort America out of some money. And
well, I had more aggravation with U.S. TSA out of Dublin than I did then.
Sure.
But we won't go. That's not of interest today. We have our special guest on. And by the way, Jeb, I'm going to give you a shout-out early so I don't forget you.
Thank you, Tom. Much appreciated.
And you've been so good in the past of getting the special Tom's World Live bumper music. I trust we will have that as a special treat for the audience. Am I right?
Sure thing.
All right. Gary Leidick, a friend of mine for some years, has blessed us with his presence again today. Gary, you're here to talk about your ministry and whatever else we can throw at you in the next few segments. But Gary Leidick, Gary, tell us a little bit about your ministry right out of the chute.
Well, Tom, first of all, I'd like to thank you and Frank and Jeb for having me back. You guys are a blessing to me. And so we've got a special time that Merry Christmas just passed by and brand new year coming. So I'm just grateful to have this time with you. Ministry-wise, as you know, Tom, Onward and Upward Ministries really was brought to us. We feel very strongly that the Lord has called us to this ministry of Debbie and I both, which we've always wanted to minister together. And as you know, Debbie is the director of women's ministry at Valley Church, and so this is a separate aspect. Debbie does such a great job at Valley and serving and coming alongside women at Valley. But I work and serve and coach, and we are coaches. We're not counselors. We're certified Christian coaches, and we deal with relationships. And so I've been spending a lot of time and very grateful to be with men and struggles that they are having with relationships and whatever it may be, but most of that is with their marriages. And then Debbie does hers at church, and when she's a part of the ministry, she only ministers to those that are outside of Valley, and that is a part of Onward and Upward Ministries. And then we do premarital coaching, which I just spent some time this week with Debbie and I with a couple, and looking forward to that in June. And then we've got another couple coming alongside of us that will be getting married in Vail, and I'm blessed to be able to do both of those weddings. So that's been exciting. And so God has really opened a lot of doors for us, Tom, and we are grateful for the opportunity just to spend time. And our whole prayer is just to make a difference for Christ and His kingdom, and that's where we are, Tom.
Well, you with your background, you and your wife, I'm sure you would be excellent at some of the premarital counseling. Are there some churches in the area? Because not every pastor is fully equipped to deal with certain things, and one of those certainly sometimes is premarital counseling. It takes a different skill set and some different background. Do some of the churches refer some of their premarital counseling to you?
Tom, I'm sure thankful you brought that up, because that is really a key right now, where I plan at the first of the year to spend a lot of time reaching out to the churches. As you know, and Frank knows as well as I do, that the average church only has a congregation of maybe 200, and that's around the country. And we know how busy pastors are just trying to take care of what they need to do as a pastor and encouragement. So I and Debbie really want to come alongside and be able to do that for whatever pastors that may need that kind of encouragement, assistance, and come alongside them and take that as much as that we can, and He wants us to, off as His shoulders.
What's the nuance between coach and counselor?
Well, and another great question, Frank. From our vantage point, we come alongside to coach. And when we see that counseling is necessary, Frank, we immediately allow them and let them know we think that they ought to go to a professional counselor. We are certified coaches to bring encouragement, to take them through various ways to encourage and to help them with their relationships from that standpoint, and really spend a great deal of time with them coaching and encouraging them with the direction that they're going in their relationships and where they aren't going in their relationships as far as what would be helpful to them. And we want to make sure that that's very important.
Do you have counselors that you direct them to, or is the counseling left up to their own discretion?
We do at times recommend if they desire that, but certainly it's their final, it's their choice, Frank, to make that decision. But we do have people that we have worked with and that we certainly appreciate, and so we would recommend if they have that desire to do that.
Now, your average client that you would see, Gary, is the average maybe a couple that's been together for some years, maybe starting to have some children, some stress on their marriage, financial and otherwise. I had a case like that myself just the other day. I should have referred him over to you. Marriage problems, a couple of children, financial problems of significant proportion. What's your average profile that you would be seeing right now?
Well, Tom, I would say that area between late 20s and 50s. Some have been married a very short period of time, and some have been in and been together for 25, 30 years from that standpoint. And everybody gets into a situation, as you know, Tom, that all of a sudden they're kind of just floating along and just going about marriage as just something that they're a part of, and they're really not putting the time into it anymore. And that draws out some discouragement and areas in their life that they really, really are struggling with from that standpoint. So it's a wide range, Tom.
Do sometimes you advise them to get more involved in their faith lives, a little more church time, some prayer, some Bible reading, or is that part of what maybe you're recommending here?
Absolutely, Tom. The greatest thing for us, if they come into us and their personal relationship may not be there with our Lord and Savior, and so that is something we work on immediately from that stand and spend time with them on that, because as we all know, Frank and Tom, that is the key. No matter what is going on in a marriage relationship or getting prepared to get married, Christ has to be at the top of that. So we do spend a great deal of time if that's an area that we need.
Is the old saying, a family that prays together stays together, does that ring true in your experience, or?
Oh, absolutely, Frank. I couldn't agree more with that 110%. I mean, that is the key to spending time together, praying for each other. And I know especially for our wives, that is such an important aspect of their journey with us as husbands. And sometimes it's hard for husbands to deal with that. And lots of times the wives are, in essence, taking hold of that.
Do you believe or teach that it's the husband's responsibility alone to set that tone of leadership in the worship, the prayer, the forgiveness? I've kind of come to the belief that it is the husband's responsibility, not the wife's.
Frank, that's very biblical. I mean, it is as clear as could be. We as men are to be the spiritual leaders in our home. And so much of the case is it's reversed, as Debbie and I have found out over the years. And so it is such a key. And wives want that. They're desperate for their husbands to be the leaders in their home.
All right. Well, this is, I would agree. I mean, obviously there's some joint responsibility. I think we're all going to agree with that. But I think the man does have to take the leadership. And I think you're exactly right. My observation, too often the wife is the one leading, and that's an unfortunate situation, especially on that area. But we'll be back, ladies and gentlemen. We're bringing you an edition of Tom's World Live today from 99.3.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage!
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
There's a man going around taking names, and he decides who to free and who to blame. Everybody won't be treated all the same. There'll be a golden ladder reaching down when the man comes around.
Yes, sir. That man comes around. We all better be ready, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the late, great Johnny Cash. And Jeb, thank you, because I love to have Johnny Cash as my bumper music when I'm here doing Tom's World Live, setting in for the infamous J. Michael McCoy, who we may have him join us today, guys, but the likelihood is he's still relaxing, snoozing, and catching up on some R&R, don't you think?
He won't be in today. We'll be in tomorrow.
All right. Well, stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, Tom's World Live on Webcast One Live 99.3, the Truth Network. And our special guest today, Frank and mine, is Gary Leidick. And Gary's coming in today to talk about Onward and Upward, his ministry you heard about in the first segment. And Gary, I want to come back. We talked about the kind of profile that you see and the kind of work that you do, and hopefully you'll have some success in 2017 reaching out to some of the churches that I think desperately need some of what you and your wife are trained to do in their repertoire without them having the resources to put some. Most churches don't have that kind of money to put somebody on staff that knows how to do what you do. All right, I come in. Let's use me as an example. I and my wife been married over 40 years, and she's finally getting tired of me. You can believe that. We got some financial issues, some personal issues. The kids are out of the house now, and all of a sudden we find ourselves in a position that we look and said, what's keeping us together? We come in, what's it going to cost us? What are we going to pay to get this kind of coaching that you and your wife can so amply provide?
Tom, that is something very close to Debbie and I's heart, and certainly our board. We have an incredible Christian board, and they have been so good to Debbie and I. And they have set some guidelines for us, and Debbie and I have talked to them a great deal because where we are, Tom, and my board knows this, we're not going to turn anyone away, no matter what. And we have set fees, and we share that with them. But if they can only pay a quarter of that, or 50% of it, or nothing. And that's why from a donor base and donations that are given, I'm praying in those situations that we will be able to have scholarships available. But the bottom line is, Tom, we're going to take care of whoever needs help, whether they can pay or not. Certainly, this is a part of the ministry. It's part of our livelihood, but our commitment is to the Lord. And so our charges would be $50 for an hour and a half, or whatever may be there. We are not in this for the money aspect of it, Tom.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope that some of the churches that may avail themselves of your services would be good enough to try to help donate to that same fund so that others can be reached. And oftentimes people, the biggest single driving factor that I've seen over the near 30 years we've been in business that goes to marital problems is the financial issue. And so by the time they decide they've got financial issues, they've also got marital problems, and they can't afford either one. So that's got to be a big factor for you. Give us the contact information for Onward and Upward, your ministry, both a website and a phone number, Gary.
Sure. Phone number would be 515-537-3561. And then Onward and Upward Ministries, P.O. Box 71101, Clive, Iowa 50325.
All right, and again, your website?
It is onwardandupwardministries.com.
Okay. All right. Everybody get that. And because I think some of the people that are listening today, Gary, may not themselves necessarily have problems right now, but they know somebody that is.
Yes.
They have a family member or they have a close friend that they know is going through some difficulties. And it's this kind of coming alongside, giving them the kind of spiritual underpinnings that you guys offer that can be the difference between saving that marriage or not. Frank?
Going back to the last segment, I mentioned something about the priest of the household, and it's this father-husband's commitment to not let the son go down in an argument under his roof. Because one of the most important things I found, it's not the woman's job. It's not her responsibility. She wasn't hardwired to do it. I mean, sometimes women have to step up and fill that role if they're single, but it's not their responsibility. And it all starts out with a woman with a bruised heart. And that bruised heart goes to a cool heart. Then a cool heart becomes a uncaring heart.
Yes.
Cold heart, hateful heart, bitter heart. But it all started out with the bruised heart. And a lot of guys aren't smart enough, and you learn way too late, if you just would have soothed the bruised heart the night it was bruised, then you would save yourself a lot of problems down the road.
I think you could employ Frank as an assistant here. I think that's pretty good advice, isn't it?
Well, I'm wide open to that, but I understand that Mike keeps him so busy he doesn't have any spare time.
That's right.
No, Frank, you are so right on with that, because God's word's very clear about not letting the night end without having time together. And that's where prayer for our brides and encouraging them and taking care of whatever needs to be taken care of that day. And certainly, no matter what, we need to be standing up for our brides.
Well, and a lot of times, like you say, spot on. Tom hit it on the head. It starts in the financial arena, generally speaking, but it quickly moves to the sexual arena, because when you have these bitter fights over money, and the husband just doesn't say, okay, look, let's put this to bed tonight. Let's not have any more of this arguing, and let's solve this issue. Then it starts to strain at the sexual intimacy, and then you just got a whole bunch of problems.
It is so interesting that you brought that up, Frank, because that's what happens most, and communication is the main thoroughfare for a healthy marriage. And once this begins, then the husband walks out, doesn't want to talk anymore, or the wife does that because of what you shared. She's so hurt, and the pain is so deep. And you start looking at everything then as the difficulties that you have in your marriage, and it just snowballs.
Absolutely.
It just continues to go right on down. It gets bigger and bigger, and it's the communication is the key to all of our relationships, whether it's marriage or who God has called us to be a part of their lives. And that's what this journey is all about. It's not like God needs us down here. He gives us the privilege to serve Him, to love others, and it's all about relationships, first with Him and then with those that God divinely gives us.
Excellent point. I mean, if my wife could be here, she would tell you guys that I'm an absolute angel to deal with on a daily basis, and that she doesn't have these kind of problems. But we see other people that do.
Could we call her right now, Tom? I know you're
She's
right.
busy with my grandkids. I don't think she got time for this call. So. Gary, before we get clear out of the segment, I may even hold you over if you've got a few minutes to the next one, but let's go back to some of your background. You worked with a gentleman that I was privileged to get to know back in 1998. Back in 1998, I was the only Iowan called to testify in front of the National Gambling Impact Study Commission out of all places, Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada, with thousands of casino employees there. And I was pleased, I think I've said it on this show, Frank, that I was honored that there were two people booed by the crowd that day. One was myself, and the other was Dr. James Dobson, so I was in excellent company as we discussed the casino gambling issue. But the next week, I was invited to come out to, at that time, the headquarters for the Focus on the Family. Dr. James Dobson could have been a more gracious host. That day, we ended up doing the radio show. And Gary, you were in harness at that point. Tell us about your background with Focus on the Family.
Tom, it was an incredible time of my life. Dr. Dobson was kind enough and gracious enough to hire me in his backyard in '83 playing basketball, and I started out at his request as the director of human resources, and I was the 88th employee at that time in Southern California, and so it began the journey. And
Pasadena, wasn't it?
We were in Arcadia at the time,
all right.
Very close to Pasadena. Debbie and I lived in Pasadena, but it was the start of an incredible journey. I felt so strongly that we would never go under from the outside criticism and what those may try to do to focus on the family, but I was very concerned how the devil could use employees from the inside. And so I took it very, very personally. And so many people just wanted to work for Focus on the Family. And have to be very honest, I think a lot of folks thought you just kind of floated around and just encouraged and prayed with everybody. And there was a lot of work to be done, as you know. And so reality would set in. But I started out as HR, and then I moved into the public relations end of things for the ministry. And then I was director of ministry services there, and number of things occurred. Dr. Dobson and I were with Pistol Pete Maravich when he died. That ended up starting 8 years worth of camps in memory of Pete around North America, primarily for inner city and single parent children. An incredible journey. And then I did Life on the Edge conferences around North America, and that was from Doc's book. And it was for parents and teens, and weekend together, and we had some incredible opportunities to have Christ shared with so many great speakers, and we had great concerts there with those young people, and so it was just an amazing 22 years of my life. I was in a setting as a young dad and husband, and it was like a fire hydrant, Tom, trying to soak it all in. But I'm so grateful for Dr. Dobson and the opportunity to be with him for all those years and what I was taught and how God used that time.
Well, I had a lot of respect for Doc Dobson before I ever met him. Read some of his books, listened to his radio shows. I was very honored to be asked to come on to his radio show. I remember seeing the portrait of Winston Churchill hanging on his wall, and him telling me that Winston Churchill was one of his heroes, and how his board had bought the picture for him. I think it was $3,000, if I remember right, but they gave it to him as a present one year. And he was the largest, I think, single contributor to Focus on the Family. Donated his royalties from his books and so forth. At least that was what I'd heard. How did he end up on the outs with Focus on the Family? How did that happen? We've only got about a minute, but I'm curious.
Well, Tom, you mentioned, and Dr. Dobson never took a penny from the ministry, ever, and did live on his royalties. It was a setting that Dr. Dobson was going to release the ministry and had been training Jim Daly for a lot of years, and I know that was an important time for that to occur.
All right, I've asked you an unfair question with not enough time to answer, but anyway, we'll be back. I'm going to hold Gary over for a little bit longer on this and one other subject. Tom Coates coming to you, Tom's World Live, 99.3, The Truth Network.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs,
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. Because you're mine, I walk the line. I find it very, very easy to be true. I find myself alone when each day's through. Yes, I'll admit that I'm a fool for you. Because you're mine, I walk the line.
Yes, sir. Jeb, I appreciate that, and I'm tempted just to listen to Johnny Cash and not even say anything for the next segment. I am enjoying that so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Coates coming back to you with Tom's World Live, a chapter in what normally is a Max World Live show, but every once in a while we usurp the throne here, Frank.
We get to hijack it.
Yeah, we hijack it. Lock the doors. They bang on them. They wanted us to stop, but we keep chugging. Thank you, Jeb, for that.
We're like that scene in Shawshank Redemption where they're beating on the window trying to get the guy to turn off the music.
Our special guest this hour is Gary Leidick. Gary's been telling us about his ministry, Onward and Upward, a fairly new ministry. Gary had related his past background with Dr. James Dobson for a couple of decades, focused on the family. We talked about that a little bit. Let me shift gears just a bit, Gary. Dr. James Dobson was one of the early prominent church leaders to come out and put his stamp of approval on the Trump candidacy. I think it surprised some people. I think the false narrative, I think, pretty much was out there that Trump was this narcissistic, homophobic, Islamophobic, every phobic you can possibly name individual, didn't care at all about anybody but himself. And a lot of people were surprised that a prominent Christian leader like Dr. James Dobson would come out and put his stamp of approval on him. Others followed suit, number of others, and I listened with interest when Mike Pence came before the election and out at the state fairgrounds told us that he, in his own words, he echoed what Dr. James Dobson said, that Trump was a baby Christian, that he had actually reached out to Pence on one occasion to come and initiate the prayer on the plane as they travel from one place to another. I was impressed with that because I've always found Pence to be a man of high integrity, great accomplishment, and when he said that, I did not feel like it was at all contrived. I thought it was absolutely the case. So it did not mean that things that Trump did 10 to 15, 20 years ago were Christ-like. For that matter, we can all probably point at ourselves something we did yesterday that's not necessarily Christ-like.
Right.
But give me your thoughts on Dr. James Dobson's assessment of Donald Trump and perhaps what that means to the country. Your thoughts on this.
Tom, I would start from the standpoint that my 22 years with Dr. Dobson, I traveled with him at times. I was around him so much. And this is a man of integrity, of character. And I can say that if Dr. Dobson, which I have not talked to recently, but when he said that he heard from a very, very close source that Donald Trump accepted Christ and then went on to say he's a baby in his relationship. But I knew without a shadow of a doubt that Dr. Dobson believed that, or he would have never, ever shared anything like that. So from an integrity issue, I just knew that that was something that was in his heart.
No, continue with that. And Frank's got a question, but I've got a follow-up too. Something about this rang true, and it rang true for evangelicals all over the country. Now, I'm not saying just Dr. Dobson, but other people's testimony, and I think the way people were feeling. I came across a prophecy months before the election that kind of convinced me, and when we made our predictions, Frank, what I've been saying all along, and I made some private wagers with friends about the outcome of the election, sometimes with odds, sometimes not. But I was convinced, and I think a number of evangelicals were. We had a turnout of evangelicals in this country, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, that we had not seen for quite a while. We sure didn't see it under John McCain. We didn't see it under Mitt Romney. We had not seen a turnout of evangelicals probably since we had Ronald Reagan running in the White House. Now, there was a decent turnout under W. Bush, but it was somewhat tepid. It was not tepid this time, and that was one of the things that I don't think that they were measuring. There were millions that stayed home under Mitt Romney and John McCain that turned out this time. And so something was ringing true. Gary, do you believe that that Trump is chosen by God for this time in our nation?
Tom, I really do. And I started feeling that maybe 2 or 3 months prior to the election. And as I look at how this unfolded, and Tom and you and I have talked this just a little bit, but when you look at, so to speak, the odds, I mean, everybody was saying it's Hillary's. There's no other option. It's not going to happen. And then you look at what did occur, and it's just like our Lord making so sure that we knew it was from him, from the standpoint that no one else would have ever agreed and thought that that could happen. So I really do believe, and whatever God wants to do is going to be done. And he's placed this man, our new president-to-be on January the 20th, and I believe with all our hearts we need, and I know you and Frank agree, we need to be in prayer for him. I hope he continues to be surrounded by those evangelical pastors, which he has asked for, and so I just believe God's got an incredibly great plan for the years ahead.
Gives me hope because a lot of us were starting to believe that we were just heading down this endless road into further darkness, and this may be a sign that we are yet in a position where we can be redeemed. Frank?
Initially, James Dobson put his approval on Ted Cruz. What was that transition from going to Cruz to Trump? Was there some hesitancy? What immediately turned the tide in his decision-making towards Trump?
Frank, I'd love to answer that, but I really don't know because I have not been in touch with Dr. Dobson, and I really don't and haven't picked up from many of my friends back at Focus on the Family, so I really can't communicate an answer to that.
Because the reason I ask, not that it means a whole lot, but Trump was even showing a lot of promise among evangelicals, even in the primary against Ted Cruz. Voters that Cruz should have been getting, Trump was getting. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't some big surprise that evangelicals were trending Trump.
Correct. I think it boils down to an entirely new change. And I think that's what the voters really wanted to believe in a new America from the standpoint of where President-elect Donald Trump was sharing. And I believe we're in the midst of prayer and trusting him.
Gary Leidick's voice you just heard. Onward and Upward is the ministry. Gary, give us one more shot of the phone number and website.
Sure. Phone number is 515-537-3561. And then Onward and Upward Ministries.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Gary Leidick. Onward and Upward is the ministry. We've been pleased to have you join us today, Gary. You maybe come back sometime in the next year and give us an update on how things are going. This has been a chapter of Tom's World Live. We're coming back right after the break. And Frank the Verse is my co-pilot today, right, Frank?
Yes, sir.
See you in just about 3 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common, everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Love is a burning thing, and it makes a fiery ring. Bound by wild desire, I fell into a ring of fire. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher. And it burns, 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 the ring of fire, the ring of fire.
Boom. Yeah. Johnny Cash. There we go. Tom's World Live. You know, when you hear that song or any other Johnny Cash tune of note, you're probably into Tom's World Live and not Mac's World Live. Isn't that right, Frank?
Yes, and whenever I hear Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire, I immediately think of Hillary Clinton for some reason. I don't know why, but...
preview of coming attractions, perhaps. I was asked, we don't have... if you want to call in now or in the next hour, we're going to have State Senator Charles Schneider as our guest, and he's going to talk about a number of issues upcoming that may be of interest to you on legislative agendas and priorities and also Israel. We're going to talk a little bit about Israel because he's been there recently, Frank, as has Mac. We're going to talk about that a little bit. That number, if you want to call in now or in the next hour, is 244-0077 on the Truth hotline.
And be sure and call in and challenge Tom or I's thoughts, because if you don't, we're right and you're wrong.
That's the case in any case, right, Frank?
Yes.
But I have had a request through my own line to give a shout out to a loyal fan, young gentleman named Caleb Ockenpaw. He's requested me to give a shout out to him, so I'm doing just that from Papo. There you go, Caleb. All right, now let's warm this thing up just a little bit, Frank. You mentioned an issue when I first came in regards to topical interest. Let's warm this political iron up just a little bit.
Well, since you have been gone, Tom, I don't think we have talked about the Electoral College and the shenanigans that the left tried to pull to get the faithless electors to go against Trump. In reality, 5 such faithless turned against Hillary, and it was only 2 that turned against Trump. Now, supposedly 3 voted for, what was it? 1 for Chief Dan Eagle Feather something or something other. 1 for Colin Powell. And then there was 3 for...
Bernie?
No, there was only 1 for Bernie. I think this guy was from Minnesota, and he got slapped down, and they replaced him. And his replacement voted Hillary, but there was several votes for Colin Powell. I think there was 3 votes for Colin Powell and 1 for this Native American guy. On the contrast, Trump had 2. 1 went for Ron Paul, of all people, not Rand Paul, Ron Paul, and the other one for John Kasich.
We have never seen, I don't think, at least in my lifetime, and I've not heard historically, this kind of concerted effort after what is pretty clearly a lopsided Electoral College win. Such sour grapes I don't think we've seen, and such a concerted effort, even at the last minute, $500,000 spent by Martin Sheen and some lesser lights, as if Martin Sheen is a big light, but the others were hardly recognizable in this TV ad that they did, employing people to use the example of Hamilton.
And they would just respect you so much in the morning if you would just vote against Donald Trump.
Yeah, if you could just understand that the only founding father they could even name was Hamilton. And they thought that if you could just follow his example, you would vote against this demagogue, as Martin Sheen called him, and make sure that the Electoral College did the right thing. We, in essence, when you take out 2 counties, L.A. County and the county that has New York City, the liberals are loving to say, well, she won by 2-point-something million votes.
And you notice how that keeps getting larger every day.
Yeah.
It started out at 500,000, and it's almost up to 3 million now. And they like to tout that every time they open their mouth.
They do.
But you can make up that difference in California alone, Tom.
No, you don't have to use a whole state, Frank. Yes, you can. That's a fact. But all you have to do is take 2 counties, and take L.A. County and New York County, and you throw those 2 out of the mix, and those 2 are heavily populated by both state employees and people that are a high percentage of them on some degree of government handouts, welfare in some fashion. You take those 2 counties out, and he wins by popular vote of 500,000.
Then
did you get this?
Yes.
2 counties in the entire United States removed. And those are heavily populated, again, by government workers and people that have their hands out every month for government handouts. And what this illustrates, Frank, is that the majority, if you look at the map, most all the counties in this country voted for Trump. Now, if you go with the liberal mindset and they say it needs to be a pure democracy, this republic that our founders gave us is not acceptable anymore. This is the 21st century. And what we need to do is actually employ the one man, one vote, or one woman, one vote, or one anything and one vote, and then we'd have pure democracy. There's a book that it was a favorite of mine. I read it when I initially went out into the workforce on a recommendation called Atlas Shrugged. I reread it a few years ago, again, with different eyes, because Ayn Rand was not a Christian, but a humanist. But as I reread it, this thing comes to mind, the tyranny of the masses.
Right.
And what this would do is that those that ride in the wagon would actually outnumber the people pulling the wagon. And when you can put them into servitude, which is what they wanted to do, when you put them into a servitude position, then the minority is shackled and is expected to continue to pull that wagon forever.
Oh, yes, absolutely, Tom. And also, did the recount, we didn't get to discuss the recount, I think, since you have been here last, but Jill Stein's plan backfired in her face because it showed a bunch of illegal voting that went on around Detroit.
I know it.
In that there was more votes than people who had signed to cast a ballot.
I think the ratio is almost 3-1 there, Frank. Yeah, so what it actually showed in irony, when they did do some recounting, some checking, they found out, there was some deception, but it seemed to be coming from the Democrat ranks. Isn't that ironic?
Yes, it was all supposed to be them nasty Republicans that pulled all the shenanigans, and it was...
Well, and the Russians, too. Let's not forget Putin and the Russians.
The spin a wheel of excuses for today. It was the Russians. It was the WikiLeaks. It was not my fault. I'm honest. It wasn't my fault.
Oh, my goodness. And the height of hubris I saw from our glorious, soon-to-be out leader, Barack Obama. If I had run, I'd have won. Did you see that, Frank?
Well, yes, and I put a post on that on Facebook today. Under his watch, they've lost over 900 House seats across the nation, 69 House seats in the federal, 13 senators and 12 governors, and the White House. And Obama says he could have beat Trump.
Well, and he said during the run that his legacy was indeed on the ballot.
Absolutely.
And now he claims that he'd have won.
And his legacy lost.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a top-of-the-hour break. When we come back, our guest is going to be Senator Charles Schneider. He's going to talk to us a little bit about what's going on in the state and what likely will go on. This is Tom Coates sitting in for J. Michael McCoy, Tom's World Live.